Okay, good afternoon again. So while others are still answering the scales and a number of our teachers have already answered and my assistant here is basically preparing for the statistics, we will proceed with the lecture. So let's start our lecture for this afternoon. I would like to thank the Commission of Higher Education and MSUIIT for giving us the opportunity to lecture about a much more, a needed rather, topic for uh, our educational sector, particularly in the academe, given the COVID-19 pandemic situation. Okay, so um, COVID-19 pandemic, as basically a lot of research have said this, is not only, it does not rather only affect physical health, but it also affects one's mental health and well-being. And then why is it that this is important for us to understand? Because we need to look into also the status of our students, not only to the students, but basically also to our teachers, because this may affect not only on the design of the curriculum, but also on the implementation of the new curriculum, um, given the context of the new normal. Okay, so we basically have new uh, reality based on our, for a while, let me sorry for some technical glitches. Okay, let's proceed. No, we have now a new normal characterized by the word quarantine. Uh, it's quite common nowadays. We have what we call, we usually hear this in the media and in the government, from the government agency, particularly to the DOH, pertaining to our level of quarantine. We have the enhanced community quarantine, modified enhanced community quarantine, general community quarantine, and modified general community quarantine. So these are this is actually rather a main characteristic of the new normal, which actually we haven't yet experienced even, I mean, prior to the COVID-19. And then aside from that, there is also a new term like what we call a self-isolation. So in as much as we are used to interact with a lot of people being or having rather collectivist culture, it seems to, nowadays that this is a very common term. This is a very common situation where we tend to isolate ourselves for the fear that we might be afflicted with the COVID-19. Okay, and then we have also the term physical or social distancing, where we, even if we will go to the malls, we have to have physical distance between those who will be buying certain goods and those who will not, and those you're rather paying in the counter. So basically, physical and social distancing also is the new norm. And then there seems to be drastic changes of our lifestyle. And this is true um, basically because of the fact that the new reality sets in, or rather the new reality provides us with a situation where we need to change the common behaviors that we have prior to the COVID-19. So for example, when we go to the malls, we basically fall in line. We fall in line outside the malls. We fall in line during we will pay, or rather when we pay our bills. And it created a lot of drastic changes for those who are going to parties are no longer going to parties. For those who are celebrating birthdays, for those who are celebrating a lot of anniversaries. Basically, it created changes on their lifestyle because they could no longer um, have the usual practice or have the usual norm or the usual set of behaviors that we perform during celebrations. No? And this created a lot of effect. No? A lot of consequences, may it be intended or unintended consequences with the way we live our daily life or daily lives. And then another feature of this new normal is the uncertainty and the abrupt termination of on-school activities. Here in MSU IIT, we're quite surprised because when it was declared for the ECQ, we could not even fix some of our things because we have to be outside the school campus. No? And this created a lot of distress. This created a lot of disruption in academic work, and this created a lot of uh, basically changing of rescheduling of academic activities. Aside from that, our main feature also as a higher educational institute or higher, we are in the higher education, we usually do research, and we have our research project, we have our internships, and this created the pandemic situation created really drastic changes with the way we do things. No? For example, here again in our internships in psychology and education, we are still looking for ways how to grade our students with regard to the internships, with regard to their practicum, with regard to their practice teaching, so on and so forth. And then our research project, our projects rather, our thesis, you know, it created a lot of mess, different interpretation of different policies. So this is now basically the emergence of a new normal. We have so much chaos with our system. Hopefully this will stabilize and we create now a new normal. And then aside from that, we have also what we call as infodemic. No, what do we mean by infodemic? This is actually a spread of both accurate and inaccurate information. So when we say infodemic, most of the time people believe, or rather are vulnerable to believe, if they are severely psychologically distressed, if they are uncertain, if the things are quite unpredictable, usually they are vulnerable to accept information. Unfortunately, not all information are accurate. So we have a lot of information to take in to a point where we believe what we wanted to believe and we don't want to believe what we don't want to believe. No? So if you look at the social media, it's really crazy out there. Okay, so this is what we call infodemic. So in short, what will happen with all these realities? We could not anymore go back to the normal, I mean, to the old normal. And this is a reality. We could no longer go back to the usual things that we usually, the usual things that we do because of the fact that this has been disrupted due to the pandemic situation. And this really creates a lot of challenges within us. And what will be the consequence of this disruptive changes in our life? Somehow it is disruptive. I'm not saying it's antagonistic, basically, in a way, but the disruption creates a lot of changes and creates a lot of efforts for us to adapt to these changes. At what expense? So in most recent literature, basically, we had what we call as a crisis within the crisis. And why is it that we have a crisis within the crisis? Because the COVID-19 pandemic situation creates a lot of psychological distress that virtually, or not virtually, but relatively affects our mental health. You know? So this crisis within the crisis seemingly becomes also the new normal, no? Because mental health condition is affected by the pandemic situation in two ways. First, it creates disorders or mental health difficulties, new mental health difficulties, meaning to say, prior to COVID-19, they haven't experienced psychological distress that much to a point that it will become a mental health disorder. And they haven't experienced basically depression or anxiety or any other psychological disorders or mental health disorders. But during or after they have experienced, not really after, but while they have experienced the pandemic situation, somehow it created a lot of mental health concerns, no? And aside from the creation or the development rather of mental health disorders, we also have what we call as the exacerbation of existing mental health condition. According to research and even according to my practice, those who are not stable in terms of their mental health are likely uh, to experience exacerbated symptoms of mental health due to the fact that they are experiencing also distress during the pandemic situation. So sa Bisaya pa, medyo naanataad tong una, nasamutan na hinoon, no? And this somehow is a sad story of the pandemic situation. So for those who are mentally healthy, because of the pandemic situation, it created a lot of psychological distress. And those who are not mentally healthy, ni solidify na noon ang symptoms, much more, it exacerbated the severity of certain disorders. Now, as teachers, what will we do? I mean, I will discuss that later, but if this is the situation right now, we need to understand that if depression is already a problem in our mental health, in our college students, a lot of suicide are there already long before the COVID-19, we expect that if this will not solidify, this will also increase the propensity, the proneness of an individual to have more severe mental health disorders like depression or anxiety or psychological distress. So the next few slides will be talking. I am a researcher. I'm a scientist in a way. That's why I wanted to really put here end notes and all of these things as a researcher and as a methodologist. I would like to present to you the different research as of the moment, because this is quite new. It's all 2020. What are the mental health challenges that we need to understand, particularly with our students and with our colleagues also, teachers, no? So what are the pandemic-related distress? According to research, number one, we have what we call as post-traumatic stress symptoms. What do we mean by this? Individuals who may have experienced events within the pandemic situation may likely to suffer from what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. I will somehow discuss further on this aspect later in my slides. And then second, according to research, individuals who are also experiencing the pandemic situation, particularly with those individuals who were so active before, but suddenly they became isolated somehow or physically distant from each other, suffer also from what we call as anxiety. No, I will discuss further what do we mean by anxiety on my later slides. And then, according to research, individuals also tend to manifest some depressive symptoms. No, may it be in United States, in China, or any everywhere, no, in different parts of the world. And then individuals also experience, or those who experience pandemic situation also increase their psychological stress. Aside from that, we have also affective psychosis, and this is a little bit weird because of the fact that individuals who are experiencing pandemic situation, to a certain extreme, have what we tend to, according to research, they tend to impact other, some people with regard to what we call as brief psychosis. They experience hallucination, they experience delusion, they experience irrational beliefs, no? And this is some sort of a little bit alarming, because of the fact that if some of us will suffer from affective psychosis, the best recommendation there is actually already to take some medications. And then another research would say that one of the effects of pandemic situation is the enhancement of burnout. Now, I would like to clarify that burnout is actually a product of, providing efforts, particularly in work, over time. However, ang nahitabo karon sa pandemic situation, the burnout suddenly appeared despite the fact that the individual prior to the pandemic might probably suffer from this stress but not burnout. So burnout is, as probably a lot of you have a good reading about burnout. There is a physical exhaustion there. There is a low sense of low achievement in work, so on and so forth. And I knew a lot of clients of mine as a clinical psychologist, and I knew a lot of friends also of mine who are not yet due for retirement, but suddenly opted for an early retirement because they have seen the possibility of death, they have seen the possibility of being affected by COVID-19, and this creates some sort of an impact where they felt suddenly that they are already suffering from burnout due to their work. I have a few clients who opted for early retirement because, as what they said, they could no longer cope how to design curriculum, how to do this in the internet, given that their generation was not actually born to have this online education, and they are quite somehow they anticipated already that they will become very tired if they will cope with the pandemic situation or for this with this new norm, no? And then we have to understand that. And then other research would also say that there is what we call somatic symptoms disorder. Now, there are no studies in the Philippines yet after the COVID-19 or while we are experiencing rather the pandemic situation. However, there we have a lot of research published already in ISI Scopus Index journals that somatic symptoms are very common among Filipinos. Now, what do you mean by somatic symptoms? These are symptoms that we experienced in our body, and yet there are no biological basis for the experience of this somatic pain or somatic symptoms. For example, we have very common like back pains among females, where when they went to a medical checkup, everything is normal. We have also numbing experiences, tingling sensations of some of the teachers rather or professors in universities, where they felt that they are sick in terms of their physical health, but once they go to the doctor, suddenly they found out that they are normal. So what according to research, because of the pandemic situation, this created a lot of somatic symptom disorder. Now, one proof there that Filipinos really are suffering from somatic symptom disorder is actually, I mean, I always say this in my seminars, seminars about mental health. If you look at our drugstores, we have different kinds of liniments, right? Efficacent oil, omega painkiller, and so on and so forth. Because the number one treatment of somatic symptom disorder in the Philippines, based on our studies, is actually massage. No? Hilot. Kung wala na efficacent oil, omega. Kung wala na omega, kung sa pa na mga baligya diha ng mga liniment oils. Kung wala na gyud, pwede na gyud gaas, no? Pwede na gaas, pwede kang mantika, ug uban pa para lang gyud mahilot. Now, this is actually a symptom of what we call a somatic symptom disorder because there are no known biological cause of this tingling or painful body parts. No? And then we have also what we call, due to the pandemic situation, exacerbation or the development of irrational fears. And we fear a lot of everything. No, we fear a lot. We fear the fear is becoming generalized. No, meaning to say the fear is no longer just about the fear that we will be afflicted by COVID, but everything is there. No, we are afraid that our children will be sick. We are afraid. All the fears that we have, it increases somehow by severity. Then another common, I guess this is a very common mental health issue, rather, not a disorder yet, a mental health issue pertaining to, due to the pandemic situation, is the maladaptive binge watching. So, well, I am guilty of this in the initial stages of COVID-19. So I watch a lot of what Korean political dramas and other Netflix shows. Why? Because I do not know how also to cope at the very first few weeks, how to cope with being at home. Because usually in my lifestyle, I usually go out, and then suddenly I was like, quote unquote, being imprisoned at home. So I could not do anything except for some readings, and then suddenly I felt like really going to binge watch a lot of shows. Now, why is it that this is maladaptive? If the person is no longer performing functional activities because for him or her, binge watching shows is somehow their life. No? So this is very common also among Filipinos because, of course, we have the Korean telenovelas and all these things that created, that rather, because of the pandemic situation, enhanced the binge watching to a point that it becomes maladaptive. The next difficulty that we have is what we call poor sleep quality. This is actually manifested either difficulty in sleeping or difficulty sustaining healthy sleeping, meaning to say, uh, the quality of sleep could not be sustained. No? Ang una, maglisod og tulog. Ang ikaduha, bisang matulog, morag wala matulog. Kaya after pagkatulog, morag gihapon o gikapoy. No? So these are somehow the effects to our mental health due to the pandemic situation. Of course, there is another one nga, sir, unsaon, doc, unsaon man ni siya, doc? Dali ra siya makatulog, makasustain siya sa quality of sleeping. Pero, di na po siya ganahan mo mata. Kay grabe na ang iyahang katulog. Di na lang siya ganahan mo mata. That is still what we call sleeping disorder, no? Because you either develop insomnia or hypersomnia, no? So this is actually brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic situation, no? Kung naana ka ani, mas ma-enhance pa because of this situation. And then we have also what we call obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, I would like to clarify this, no? Because constant washing of hands is no longer an OC disorder because of the new normal. So the obsessive compulsive here is basically pertaining to other form of behaviors, no? To a point where they are so bothered that they can no longer have regular functional activities because of the fear that if they will not follow a certain ritual, they will be in a bad status or they will be in a bad situation. Okay, another pandemic-related distress is what we call vicarious traumatization. Now, this is very apparent in our, students, basically. Why? Because they kept on watching news, basically, how painful it is to have COVID-19, how the situation of other people are doing so much distress to others, to a point that sooner or later they will imbibe as if they are the one experiencing basically the situation. The moment they have this quote unquote imbibing the trauma, most likely they will also manifest symptoms like they are the ones being traumatized by the pandemic situation. Okay, and then another one is what we call suicide. No, of course, this is a very hot topic, not only here in Region 10, not only here in MSU IIT, because I have been invited by a lot of schools pertaining to the drafting of a plan to somehow reduce suicide. No, I am afraid that the moment we will start our classes and then the pressure is already put onto our students, those who are already having suicide ideation might exacerbate their suicide ideation by really having now suicidal behaviors. I hope that I might be wrong in this aspect, but let us just be prepared, just in case suicide ideation, suicide behaviors becomes some sort of an emerging really pandemic also. No? Okay. Sorry. Okay. Next is there is a disease. This not really a disease, but a mental health concern. Just recently, not discovered, but studied because of the pandemic situation. They call that a sense of derailment. What do you mean by a sense of derailment? When an individual feels that he is already disconnected from his or her life in the past. And therefore, he could not move forward and is no longer motivated to move forward because of the fact that he felt that there is some disconnection between the me now and the me in the past. So the future course of action becomes very fuzzy or becomes very blurred in such a way that the person are no longer motivated. The person is no longer motivated, rather, to do certain things. No? And then another one is related to somatic symptom is health anxiety. No? Although our hospitals right now may not be that as busy as before with regard to entertaining patients who are non-COVID, okay, usually at ang hospitals man good, ang COVID siguro mudaghan, pero ang katong non-COVID, ang katong mga tao di na mga to sa hospital, it enhances one's health anxiety. So I guess this is also a concern found in China and in the United States, where people believe that they are sick, but they are not willing to go to the hospital. No? Okay. Another one that is very apparent nowadays is the problematic internet use. Because of the pandemic situation, we are already dependent of the internet use. That's correct. I mean, it's not really a mental health challenge. What makes it a challenge is that without without the internet, it seems that we could no longer adjust to our daily lives. Meaning to say, this becomes some sort of central to one's life. A number of our students here in MSU IIT who are actually undergoing counseling for this problematic internet use, they felt that without internet, they are using the internet and they value the internet more than having their lunch, having their breakfast, having their dinner, or even in studying a lot of things, they value more the use of internet rather than other functional activities in their daily life. Another new, quote-unquote, new disorder that we found out, although this has been documented prior to the COVID-19, but now it seems to be very prevalent, is what we call problematic smartphone use, right? So there might be other students who tend to value their smartphone to a certain extent that they carry it even if they are sleeping. No? And the use of smartphone, it becomes central to their life to a certain extent that they are already negligent rather on some of their activities or duties in their lives. Now, let me give you some statistics. Let me give you some statistics with regard to the depression and anxiety in the United States. No, usually the prevalence rate of depression and anxiety, depression rather, is around 6.6% of their population. In the United States right now, 24.9% of their population is experiencing depression. So meaning to say 1 out of 4 Americans. Before, anxiety disorder, which is actually high, prior to COVID, it's around 8.2%, but now it's becoming 29.4%. That is 1 out of 3 estimated, no? Among Americans are already rather experiencing certain kind of anxiety disorder. Okay, and then another statistics that we have here, in China, the generalized anxiety or the anxiety in China is becoming is rather now 35.1%, 35.1%, meaning to say 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 2 to 3 individuals are suffering from anxiety. I will discuss to you the symptoms of anxiety because that's the scale that we administer also based on the recommendation of the World Health Organization. And then in China also 1 out of 5 Chinese are already suffering from depressive symptoms related to the pandemic situation. And with regard to poor sleep quality, 1 out of 5 also of their population are suffering also from poor sleep quality. Okay, next slide. How about the medical frontliners? Anxiety constitutes around 23.04%, but post-traumatic stress disorder accounts around 27.39%. So meaning to say 1 out of 3 frontliners might also be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. With regard to college students, we don't have yet that much statistics, but according to this study based on Tao et al. In China, around 24.9% suffered from generalized anxiety among college students. Okay, for a while. Next slide, please. Okay, for PTSD, and this is very high in China, around 96.2%, no? Particularly in the area of Wuhan, suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, so what is the, what is the purpose of giving you all the statistics here? Meaning to say that all over the world, there seems to be a crisis within a crisis. And this crisis is actually mental health. Now, what is the implication here with regard to education? What is the implication here in the world of the academia? Now, the moment a student or a teacher is experiencing certain mental health disorder, it is generalized in a way, meaning to say it affects the entirety of the well-being. It affects her work or his work. It would affect his or her relationship. It would affect his or her the way learning capability. No, it will also affect the way they will perform their tasks or their assignments, so on and so forth. And we need to understand this because although in the Philippines we have no statistics yet with regard to mental health, but a lot of studies are emerging right now that the pandemic situation is really creating havoc to the mental health of the populace. Now, there are also, now, I would like to discuss to you because if uh, a lot of participants already answered our scale, so I am trying to show you on the basis of our statistics on those who answered in this seminar. Let us wait for a while because I want to show the statistics. Okay, this is now our statistics. First, probably in the Philippines. Um, those are suffering from COVID-related depression accounts for 27.85% of the participants now here. So meaning to say 1 out of 3 attending in this webinar is somehow experiencing major depression. This is just provisional diagnosis. This is not in no way a diagnosis, but this is already an indicator that I guess CHED need also to address mental health difficulties of our teachers. No? And around 16.86% of those who are attending this seminar are suffering from generalized anxiety. And wow, 55.39% of those who attended in these seminars is experiencing psychological distress. Diba? 1 out of 2, no? So let's go, let's proceed. What do we mean by that? So what is major depression? So 27.8%, next slide. So 27.8%, right, of the participants attending in this seminar might experience the following symptoms. First, they have little interest or pleasure in doing things. Meaning to say, around 1 out of 3 of the participants here might have experienced that they lose interest or they lose pleasure of the things they are used to enjoy before. No, and this is actually a symptom of depression, COVID-19 related depression. And another symptom that probably have experienced by 1/3 of the participants here is feeling down, depressed, or hopeless. No, somehow this is an alarming because it's 1 out of 3. Can you imagine a teacher who is experiencing this in front of the class? How would it affect their teaching, right? But we do not blame anybody because we are in this situation all together, right? So we have, I guess, the first thing in psychiatry or in clinical psychology, the first thing that we need to do is really to understand why we are feeling the way we feel, no? Because sometimes it is okay not to be okay at this point of time. So the third symptom could be trouble falling or staying asleep, or probably sleeping too much. No, 1 out of 3. Another symptom of depression is the feeling of tiredness, having having little energy to do daily tasks. No, and then the fifth symptom of major depression is poor appetite or overeating. You know, so I understand a lot of my friends who are teaching in college are already, but they are not really having poor appetite, but they are overeating, I guess, because their waists are becoming wider by horizontal description. No? And then sixth is feeling bad about yourself because of the fact that you are no longer used to the new normal right now. Okay? That is bad, but that is understandable. The seventh symptom here is what we call trouble concentrating, lack of focus, lack of concentration. Now, if we have experienced this as teachers, definitely our students will also experience this way. And that's why we need to understand, because of the fact that if we have felt this, probably a lot of them are also feeling that they have difficulty in concentrating with their classes. They have difficulty in understanding your lessons or instructions, so on and so forth. And then the eighth symptom is moving or speaking more slowly, no? Meaning to say, tiredness, lack of energy. When they talk, when they move, it seems like they are in a slow motion. No, this is why I have to understand well, and I need to understand my children when when they move too slowly, because of the fact that they could be, suffering from this particular symptom due to the pandemic situation, or they could have the opposite also symptom. No, they become restless and fidgety. They could not sit still. They could not. They just go here and there and everywhere. And then on the ninth symptom of depression is what we call thoughts that you would be better off dead. I hope nobody here, but or hurting yourself in some way. Meaning to say, trying to escape the current situation right now. So those individuals, according to research, with a symptom like this is actually vulnerable for either self-harm or suicide ideation. Now, around 1 out of 5 of our participants now may have what we call as COVID-related generalized anxiety disorder. Now, what is the difference between generalized anxiety disorder and anxiety? At first, the anxiety is being provoked by the COVID-19 situation, meaning to say, we are anxious that we might be afflicted by the COVID-19 virus. That's correct. But here, this is the anxiety now is generalized, meaning to say, when we experience these symptoms, it's no longer about just COVID-19. We are anxious in everything, no? So the anxiety that we have felt the anxiety that we feel rather, might be generalized in all other situations in life. For example, we are now anxious with the future of our children. We are now anxious that our kitchen is no longer clean. We are already anxious that we haven't attend to our laundry. We are anxious because our house is no longer clean. We are anxious because our partner is always going out, or our husband or wives are actually going out. They are still going to different SUCs despite the fact that there is a warning for the COVID-19 virus escalation. So this creates anxiety not only for the COVID-19, but it becomes generalized to the different areas in our life. Okay, and one of that is feeling nervous or anxious or always on the edge. That is one symptom of generalized anxiety disorder. Another one is not being able to control worrying. So you keep on having these worries, despite the fact that you may rationalize that this is not really true, that this is not possible, but still you could not really stop the worrying, no? And then you worry too much about various things, a lot of things, not even, as what I've said, not even related to COVID, but a lot of things, no? And then there seems to be a trouble for you to relax. It seems that you are fidgety, and this is actually connected to the fifth slide, fidgety and restless. And then here comes another symptom, irritability. Suddenly you will feel easily annoyed by noise, you easily feel annoyed by even movements in the house. You easily annoyed because some family members might not have followed your instruction, so on and so forth. And you get easily annoyed because why Ched is giving us so hard time, no, with the new normal. That's only a joke. But basically, that's the idea. The irritability is actually there, no? And then I guess this is also a cause why people are quarreling each other, no? We have reported increase of domestic violence because people are no longer tolerating a lot of things because of the fact that they have this some sort of irritability. And then the seventh symptom of generalized anxiety disorder is the fear that something bad might happen. Again, this is not just about COVID-19. The fear now is generalized. The anticipation now is not just about being afflicted with the COVID-19, but that the anticipation is all throughout in the different areas of our lives. So if you have these symptoms, probably you have higher proneness to experience generalized anxiety disorder. And according to our statistics in this webinar, we have around 1 out of 3, right? 1 out of 5 who are already somehow manifesting symptoms of generalized anxiety. Okay. And then this is, I guess, very important because 55%, around 60% of the attendees in this webinar are actually experiencing these symptoms. Number one, feeling tired for no reason. Daghan kay guilty, no? 1 out of 2 good. Ako, guilty sad ko ani panagsa. Nervousness, of course. As a teacher, I felt nervous because of the fact that how will I deal with my students with this online thing, right? That's why I guess Chad is trying really, I mean, in Region 10 is trying really to catch up with the technology and with the methodologies or pedagogy in order to have to deliver rather this to deliver lessons in the new normal of the academy. No, feeling so nervous and nothing can calm you down. I mean, probably you're experiencing that. Feeling hopeless, feeling restless, no, feeling depressed, or rather, before that, the sixth indicator is being so restless that you could not sit still. I knew a lot of faculty members in our SUC who are no longer, who could no longer relax, basically, because of the fact that they are anticipating a lot of things. And somehow that is not normal, but that is understandable in a way. No? Number 7, feeling depressed, feeling low, feeling down. And then number eighth indicator is that feeling as if everything is an effort. Kana bitang mulihok ta. Pag mulihok ta mo bitaw, it requires too much effort, no? Pag ingon sa IIT that Dr. Mordeno, you will be lecturing, you will be lecturing about mental health of learners. Of course, sometimes I feel this way because I am conducting webinar series for almost every week now about the mental health of our students, mental health of our teachers, mental health of industry workers, so on and so forth. So some sort that it requires a lot of effort, no? Meaning to say, you are probably experiencing already, or I am probably experiencing already psychological distress, no? Number ninth indicator is feeling so sad that nothing can cheer you up. Bisa unsa ang paglingaw-lingaw diha, lingaw-lingaw mo katawa ra tag few seconds, and then after that ma-worry na pud ta, no? Number 10th is the feeling of worthlessness, meaning to say I suddenly feel that I am no longer useful. There seems to be a disconnect from my past and to my future. I am supposed to be studying right now for my PhD. I am supposed to be on study leave, and then suddenly there's a last or vast of changes in the landscape of education that I don't think that I can push through with all my dreams. I mean, if you have those thoughts, if you have those manifestations, probably you're already experiencing what we call as psychological distress. Okay? Aside from the mental health disorder, what are the unintended consequences of the pandemic? Okay? I would appreciate if you have some questions, you put it in the chat box so that I could answer some, no? Because we are already in the middle of our lecture.
Dr. Mordeno, would you like to answer one question raised by one
Yes, yes,
participant? Yes,
yes,
the
yes.
question, sir, was related to the binge something. You mentioned
Binge
about
watching.
yeah. This one is binge shopping, meaning
Oh,
online shopping.
wow, they have a lot of things.
Kaang, the snake plant, and all.
Yeah.
So, what is your opinion on that, sir?
Um, the binge shopping is actually part and parcel of what we call the obsessive compulsive disorder. Meaning to say, there is a compulsion for you to really go and shop, even if it is just for a few amount or large amount, but the shopping itself is already quote unquote therapeutic. Now, why is this therapeutic in a sense? Although this is quite maladaptive, because of the fact that you are being isolated in a pandemic situation, right? You are being warned not to go outside. So the binge shopping is part of this what we call as a compulsive disorder to shop. No, that's why and I have to say this bluntly, no? For us who are still normal, we could say that katong mga nag-shopping, mga badlungon, mga gahig ulo, yes, for us who are normal, probably we can say that. But for those who already have high level of obsessive compulsive disorder, that they need to shop somehow to survive life, they are not badlungon. They are not gahig ulo. It is just so that their disorder, called as OC or obsessive compulsive disorder, has been exacerbated to a point where they have this compulsion to buy and to shop something. No? So that's why we need to create a lot. We need to create some sort of a unique intervention for this type of people, because somehow, um, as what I have said, we could not reduce this because of the fact na mga gahi sila og ulo, right? It could be that there might be nga mga gahi gyud og ulo. But it could also be that because of the pandemic-related distress, the compulsion to buy something is already some sort of maladaptively therapeutic to have this sense of freedom. That despite the pandemic situation, they could still buy something and it somehow satisfy their well-being. No? It is a pseudo-therapeutic, pseudo because it is fake. It is not really the actual therapy, but some sort, it's understandable because it creates some sort of satisfaction to their well-being, although temporarily. So yes, it could
Sir,
be pandemic-related situation.
okay. Sir, there's a follow-up question from our participants in the Zoom room.
Yes, yes.
Question is, Do you recommend that schools will give psychological tests for students prior to the opening of classes? And if yes, what assessment tools or tool that the school may use to identify that students and or faculty and staff are experiencing mental or psychological distress?
You know, I understand the question, where it came from.
Mhm.
Um, is there a necessity for us to conduct psychological tests rather? Yes, but there is some sort of cautionary reminder, no? Because administering psychological tests requires license, no? He or she should be a licensed psychologist, a psychometrician, or registered counselor, or RGC, no? But if I guess I believe that you have licensed psychologists in your school. Yes, I really suggest in MSU IIT. We created what we call as computer-based mental health assessment program. We implemented this last year prior to COVID-19. I designed basically the tests. I developed the scales. By incoming enrollment right now, we will be administering this test because we will be monitoring the mental health of our students. And I guess that is necessary. And I guess, in fact, that is supposed to be required. No? Okay. Uh, I will explain later why we need to do that. No? I will not preempt some of my lectures here, but why do we need to administer psychological tests? Why do we need to activate this guidance and counseling office? Why? Because we need to address potential mental health epidemic, no? The crisis within the crisis. So I will not preempt, but I will answer that along the way while I will be presenting some of my slides.
Okay, noted, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. So there are also unintended consequences of the pandemic situation. No? We have here that may cause also psychological distress, but this is also a problem by itself. Like for example, disruption of daily routine. No? This is actually an unintended consequence of pandemic situation. Then the economic collapse. We have a lot of students here in MSU IIT, and we have documented some that they already wanted to come back to Iligan because they felt that they are pabigat to their families. And their families are also suffering from this economic collapse because the parents rather, are no longer working. No? And this is related actually to the financial difficulties. So this is a sad story, and this is the unintended consequence because anything that pertains to financial difficulties, anything that pertains to economic collapse, there is a vast of changes in the mental health landscape. For example, I worked before, and I was a consulting clinical psychologist in Macau and in Hong Kong for a number of years. When they suffered the Asian crisis, what happened to them? The suicide, basically, not ideation, but the suicide incidence increased vastly, meaning to say 1 out of 10 of their populations are already thinking about ending their lives. So the economic collapse, aside from the pandemic situation, will also create changes in the mental health landscape. It might exacerbate, it might worsen their mental health. No? And another one is the infodemic, the surge of both legit and fake information. And that is also very critical. Why? Because in a way, when a person is already experiencing anxiety, when a person is already anxious, the person is already trying to look for information that will justify the anxiety. If the person can read fake information, and most likely it will be construed as the truth. So the more they will believe in fake information due to their anxiety, it will have what we call a loop. Meaning to say, with the wrong information, it provokes more anxiety. The more anxious the person is, more vulnerable just of fake information. So it becomes a cycle, an ending cycle. That's why This is also an intended consequence of the pandemic situation. Next is what we call the unpredictability of the situation. And this is very, very true in our situation right now. And then we have also what we call a social stigma, right? And this is also very true if you have neighbors who are already suffering, who did suffer from COVID-19, the lockdown and everything. Pag miingon niya, ay, taga-barangay ko ana siya, so and so, ang mga tao magpalayo na dayon. Why? Kaya nag-lockdown man ang kanang barangay before. So here comes another unintended consequence, which is actually social stigma. No? And then we have also delays in academic activities. And this is very real, I mean, for us professors who are really looking into different academic activities like it is really very normal prior to the COVID-19. And then suddenly the COVID-19 happened and we really don't know what we need to do. Oh, my supervisees, my thesis supervisees, both graduate and undergraduate, you know, suddenly became very confused what to do. And of course, I'm also very confused what to do next. But of course, policies were created already. Okay, so these are unintended consequences of the COVID-19. And there is also an intended consequence or challenges within the family. There is an upsurge in domestic violence according to a particular study. And according to our PNP, we have also increased incidence of domestic violence. And that is also another thing, because we have a student here in MSU IIT who is actually a client of ours, who wanted to go back despite the COVID-19, who wanted to go back to Iligan because he is a witness of domestic violence. No? So basically, that is also an unintended consequence of COVID-19. And we have to look into that also as teachers. No? Then there is what we call lack of personal space in the family, and of course, the feelings of boredom, according to Wang et al. No? So that there is no personal space, particularly for those individuals who are living, you know, in urban poor or even in rural poor areas. No? Then there is also physical inactivity and delay in developmental milestones. What do you mean by this? The physical inactivity is real. I mean, you know, what can we do inside a room? That's why we tend to have videos that will enhance our, you know, physical agility. We have videos of exercises, so on and so forth. And then time management problems or drastic shifting of routine. And why is this? Because I guess, I don't know, even I have personal experience that where suddenly I realized, hala, 12 o'clock naman day in the noon time, hala, 11 o'clock naman day in the evening. The time cycle somehow change drastically because of the fact that we are staying at home, no? And this created a lot of challenges within the family, no? So, although there seems to be a very negative consequence of the pandemic situation, there are studies also which identified that there seems to be a positive development, positive transformation, not because of the COVID-19 pandemic situation, because it could never be a good news. However, the way they respond to the pandemic situation somehow creates some sort of a positive transformation to themselves. No? Prior to COVID, probably this is just latent, I mean, it's an underlying strength. But because of the pandemic situation, not really because, with the pandemic situation, the way they respond to the pandemic situation strengthens basically their well-being. No? So according to studies, some of individuals who are experiencing this pandemic situation, some sort increases their resilience. And we saw that. The ability to laugh, the ability to go back to their regular schedule despite that it's already online is also very apparent. The fact itself that you are attending here shows already increasing resilience. The fact that itself that you are listening to legit information, that you are cooperating with CHED, that you are cooperating with all the activities of CHED is already an indicator of resilience. And we can see that all over around, because it does not necessarily mean that when we experience a little bit of, or if we experience mental health disturbance, it does not necessarily mean that our resilience will go down. It might go down, but it could, exist hand in hand with our experience of mental health disturbance. No? It's not really and or. Okay, it's not really or. It is usually and. No? And then there were also studies which rather observed that because of the pandemic situation, they improved their sense of personal growth. No? They suddenly grew up some sort, and they suddenly have clear vision of what they wanted to be in the future. And that is a good sign, and that is a good coping mechanism by those who are experiencing the situation, a pandemic situation. And then the more they became physically distant, the more they become physically isolated, it brings a sense of togetherness to their families, to their friends. They value more the relationship by the mere fact that they could no longer physically interact. Unang ni-increase na noon nila ang social interaction through avenues like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, so on and so forth, right? Gmeet or Zoom, no? So it seems that because of this isolation, it brings a sense of togetherness. Okay. So the question usually is, what do we do now as an institution? What do we do now as a university? What do we do now as an institute of higher education? Okay. And the response will always be, we have to move forward. Now, as a psychologist, I do not even recommend moving on. Because if you are experiencing so much distress due to the pandemic situation, as a psychologist, it is in fact unethical for me to say, just move on. No, we could not move on because we have felt this way. No? So if we could not move on because the emotions are still high, it's okay. Yes, I strongly suggest that we move forward, step by step, even if we still feel the distress. In short, we always say, keep doing, keep going, despite the fact that we are very much distressed. So it is okay not to move on as of the moment, but rather we just try your best to move forward. Even if the suffering that we are experiencing right now is so meaningless, I suggest we keep on moving forward. Because through moving forward, probably we could find meaning of our suffering. Then according to a philosopher, the moment we find meaning to the suffering stops. No? Okay? So, I was informed that I have only a few minutes. Okay? So, how to move forward? I have these 4 C's. First is continuity, collaboration or connection, care, coherence, provided by the school. So let's start. How do we establish continuity? No? As an institution, we have to reestablish academic routine on regular basis. We have to go back to the academic routine. Why? Because the moment we establish an even online academic routine, it is already a sense of continuity. And according to research, we need to have a sense of continuity so that we can move forward easily and our mental health will increase in terms of positive psychological health. And then we have also another suggestion in terms of continuity. Let students participate in the management of the academic routine. Here in MSU-IIT, and I guess that will be discussed probably in the next few lectures on how students will be given a chance to be part of the managing their academic routine. Again, sense of continuity. Number 3, students advising should continue. Now, the idea here is to establish really a sense of continuity. No, but there is a transition to telecommunication in order to provide academic support for students. Sense of continuity and sense of care, which is actually the 3rd C. And then fourth, faculty and staff are encouraged to have virtual office hours to students. This time it touches now the second C, which is actually to establish connection and collaboration. Because with these cases of isolation, we need to connect online, virtual, so on and so forth. We need to collaborate. We enhance interaction, even if it is a virtual interaction. Because aside from sense of continuity, we have to establish a sense of connection, no? In order to improve psychological health. Internship site supervisors and research advisors need to consider actively engaging students. Again, sense of connection. We need to engage. How will we do it? I guess that will be provided by the next few lectures that the Chad will be performing. Study innovative methods to move research projects and capstones forward. Again, sense of continuity, sense of continuity, then sense of connection. Then the third C is care. And I guess this was the question before. We need to establish and strengthen more our counseling and career centers. No? They need to switch to virtual services to continue facilitating their growth and development. So we can do that in mental health. I mean, it's found to be effective according to studies. But the thing there is we have to provide care to our students in order to reach the 4C, which is actually coherence, a sense of well-being. No? And we knew in psychology that the moment we have a sense of well-being, the moment we can find meaning to our suffering, the suffering stops. But to sustain that meaning, we have to perform meaningful actions. And that is actually meaningful activities to our students. Eighth, creation of online support groups to share common concerns and receive social support. Again, collaboration and care. And coherence, meaning to say sense of coherence, meaning to say finding meaning to all this distress that we had. Now, can the students find that in the classroom? I believe so. They devote around 8 to 10 hours in our universities, no? 1/3 of their life. Now, and then ninth, provide awareness of students, information about stress reactions and relevant information about consequences to their mental health. And I guess as a teacher, even a math teacher, a science teacher can probably, or a professor can probably let their students understand that, sometimes not to be okay is okay as of this moment of time. Okay? Then encourage still critical thinking to avoid disinformation traps and fake news because it creates more anxiety. So according to studies in Vietnam, there are a number of ways where factors influence self-learning. No? So physical factors, availability of resources, learning space, we have to encourage that, especially that we are now having virtual classes. And then we have psychological factors, self-motivation and family support. And this is very important for a very collectivist culture. We need to create some sort of family support. And this is where we need to understand well our students because of the fact that this family really affects their learning. Then we have behavioral factors that we need to look into. Their ability to concentrate, their ability to set goals or change goals with a pandemic situation. And then enhancing communication and peer collaboration. Okay? Now, these are just tips as teachers also. I'm also a faculty. Tips in improving our well-being. Number one, put a pause from the constant stream of news. Try to look at the news, but try to limit it in a way just to be informed. No? We are now entering into the 50,000 cases, and then that's it, right? Then physical activities and exercises have even found to be beneficial to one's well-being. If you notice in your email right now, after you have taken the test, we create some suggestions. And one of the suggestions there is really try to look away to exercise. If you can have online yoga, if you can have online exercise, do it. No? And then reestablish and increase your relationship network. Despite the physical distancing, it should not prevent us to have social interaction. So reestablish old friends. Create new friends, create new relationship networks, so on and so forth. Then enhancing one's practice to increase spiritual well-being. What do you mean by that? There are studies who would say that attending religious practices practices rather, enhances their well-being. Do that. If you believe in God, believe more in God. If you believe in praying, pray harder. And we are a free country basically. So if it is doing well to you, then proceed. No? And then spend time doing things that makes you happy. And this is very important because we are now in the midst of a very distressing situation right now. So think an objective, think a plan, even within the house, and do things that makes you, a little bit happy, according to Bowell and Banks. And finally, and this is basically the takeaway why mental health is important in understanding our learners or our students or even ourselves. And this is actually coming from a very popular authors, Bowles and Banks. Inability to focus and produce our best work during the pandemic is expected. Meaning to say, we might not be well the way we do things. It is not a sign of weakness or incompetence. It simply is part of human condition. So I guess that is the takeaway. Mental health is there. We need to take care of our mental health. We need to take care of the mental health of our students. When they are no longer performing well, we have to understand and widen more our horizon. Why? Because they are not probably weak. It is just that, the situation right now is part of our human condition. That is all. Thank you for listening to my lecture. If you have problems, you can reach us through our MSU IIT Psychosocial Hub, I guess. We will provide some information, Ched, if you want to you have online sessions or any concerns pertaining to your mental health. We have volunteer counselors, and we have also volunteer psychologists and psychometricians. In as much as we want to help amidst this pandemic situation. Thank you very much, and I hope that I have given you some information that might be helpful in understanding our learners. If you do have questions, you are now free to ask.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wardeno. May I ask our participants in the Zoom meeting room to give their congratulations and thank you wave to Dr. Mordeno for a very informative, timely, relevant, and as the common word, makarelate ang kadaghanan na topic. And then may we ask Dr. Mordeno to scroll on the questions asked because there are too many of them, but some are answered already by your last few slides, especially in the ways of improving psychological health, which is applicable not just to students, but also to faculty. And we also be reminded that the talk of Dr. Mordeno will be posted in our LMS so that the participants can still access them, and also will be posted later on in our YouTube page. So since we don't have time, before we move on to our next speaker, because we still have one important topic, in behalf of the Commission on Higher Education and the TWG and Flexible Learning, we would like to thank Dr. Emilio Mordeno for the topic and for inspiring us and for giving us the setting the tone for us before we really embark on flexible learning. So salamat sa mga learning, sir, no? There are many things mentioned by our participants, but unfortunately, we don't have time. So please, everyone, please still free to ask questions kay basing na apay tayo si Dr. Verdeno mag-read. Okay.
Please proceed, yes.
Yes, sir. You can scroll down in our group chat and in our FB page. Thank you again, sir. Round of applause, silent round of applause to Dr. Verdeno. Thank you, sir. Okay, now for our second topic for this webinar lecture for our first day of the series of training. This will be delivered to us by the director of the Center for E-Learning of MSU Iligan Institute of Technology. She's also a professor at the College of Computer Studies, and she's also the team leader for our training and capacity building for the technical working group of CHED for flexible learning. And she will talk about the introduction to learning management system and its interface. Please help me welcome Dr. Seni V. Malabanan. Ma'am?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay. I'm back. Basta kayo after a long day, and here I am again. So I would like to share to you my slide, which is actually that of okay, I'm sharing to you my slide. Hang on. Is it off? Yeah. Okay. So our project is called ReFLEX, Retooling for Flexible Learning Teaching Strategies of Region 10. So if you will be asked, what are we doing? We can simply call it, we are doing the ReFLEX training, okay? So we know for a fact that we are already having this training for 12 days, and to make a very long statement, what we are doing, we call it ReFLEX. So there are just two things that I will be discussing, and it perhaps I'll be done in a few minutes. Okay. So I'd like to talk to you about the overview of the LMS interface and relate this LMS to our workshop for the ReFLEX10 program. But first, I would like us to talk about what is a learning management system. A learning management system is a software application for the administration, documentation, tracking, reporting, automation, and delivery of educational courses, training programs, or learning and development programs. Okay, but what is really the function of an LMS? Its role varies depending on the organization's objectives, whether it is online training strategy and whatever desired outcomes that they need to have for this organization. And the most common use for LMS software is, of course, to deploy and track online training initiatives, wherein assets are uploaded to the learning management system, which makes them easily accessible for remote learners. There are so many learning management systems in the market. Some of them are, of course, expensive, but for us, we go for the not so expensive or the free one, which is an open source. An open source such as Moodle or the Moodle platform, this is a free online learning management system which provides educators around the world with an open source solution for e-learning that is scalable, customizable, and secure with the largest selection of activities available. That is the definition given by Moodle. So in our training, we will be using Moodle. And after the training, you will have already the capacity to create your own virtual classroom. And that will be in the last unit, which is unit 4, or the last, the 10th and the 11th, 10th, or rather 11th and the 12th meeting. Okay, here is an example of the interface of a learning environment. So I just photo the learning environment that we have in MSU-IIT, and we call it MOLE. MOLE stands for MSU-IIT Online Learning Environment. So hopefully the design of our classroom for this training will be enhanced, because I will show you the basic interface as we are still developing the interface for what we will be using in this ReFLEX10 training. So this is the inside of that classroom. Just for example, we are having a training which we call InFlex webinar series. It is an online training workshop on innovative, flexible teaching and learning modalities. That's why we call it InFlex. In the same manner, we call ours as retooling for flexible learning and teaching strategies for HEIs in Region 10. That's our ReFLEX10. Okay, so if we create our classroom, it will look similar to this. And there are, of course, this is the dashboard. And we have here some information on the right side. And the main phase, or the main page of the classroom, is where we write our, there are links to that and whatever we want for our lessons. Okay, now this is the initial interface, and which is under development. For your information, we just have configured the what we will use for this training. And this is deployed from a server. And for the whole training period, we will access the materials in this. So we have, I initially will have this as the available course, ReFLEX10, which is retooling. So this is a live, when in our actual use of this classroom, we will already be clicking this ReFLEX10. So for the teachers that we will be posting, or rather for the trainers, their name will appear here. So I have here an example, Vincent Malales, who is as well our technical staff for this training. We will have Vincent and Nenen. I have them here in my office, and we will as well have them to assist us. And of course, we also have our trainers. So when you continue on our interface, you will be brought to this page, because you will be asked to create new account. So your username, which you have registered, our format will be your first name, then you follow it with a period, and then your surname. So your name, then you have your period, and then you have your surname, then your password. But before you are able to log in, you will need to create your new account. So this is how it is. When you click that create new account, you will have to put your name, choose your username and password, and which I suggested, we suggested that it will be your surname, your first name and your surname. Then if you click that more details, I brought this more details to the right. And you have to write your email address. You can use your email address, your corporate email address, and then your details, okay? So that's the basic interface. Now, a learning management system has three basic functionalities, or what we call facilities, that a learning management can do. The first one is, it is learning resource management, where we can upload our resources, our assignments for the students, and our links, for example, the videos, the YouTube links, all right? We have that. And for interaction and communication, and for our interaction and communication, we have here where we can have our forum and we can chat to the participants, whether to our teacher, to the group mates, or to other participants for our training. And if you are using this in your class, where you can interact with your students. The feedback and assessments is another functionality, or another thing, that facility that can be done by the LMS. You can have the feedback and assessments. Our grading system, the rubrics are there as well in this functionality. Now, along the way, you will learn how to upload your learning resources and interact with with other participants. And if there are feedbacks, the trainers can give feedbacks, all right? Now, but of course, we need to really consider that the learning management system is, of course, used for our online facilitation of our classes. So I have here this page where we categorize our students. Students with no connectivity, students with limited or intermittent connectivity, and students with full connectivity. So what can be used for those with no connectivity? So again, of course, this is not part of our online, just the PDF. For example, sorry, I have to go back to my screen. Okay, so if if we have students with no connectivity, we can prepare the materials like PDF modules, recorded lectures, submission of outputs through courier. SMS blast is what we have here in IIT. We have SMS blast as well. So we can text our students, gives SMS or information through text to our students that the resources are along the way, or could have been mailed. And for those with limited connectivity, it's similar, but perhaps for the chat or for information, people or faculty members can have a group in Facebook where they can communicate with their students, because sometimes others cannot connect in any other facility, but with FB, students are able to really work on being able to communicate with their peers or their teachers. And of course, for category 3, we have students with full full connectivity. So you have the resources can be having the PDF modules, the recorded lectures, which we will have in our training. These are all the resources that can be placed in our LMS, in our learning management system. That's why even the collaborative activities and our online resources, which forms part of our workshop, that is why we need to have the LMS, and that is our Moodle. Now, we go back to how we are connected in Region 10. So we have here all the connections of the 10 consortium or members of the consortium, which are including Misamis University, Governor Alfonso Tan College, Northwestern Mindanao, then Bukidnon State University, Tagoloan Community College, Capital University, then we have USTSP and Xavier University and Central Mindanao. You see that we are situated in the ridge to reef, right? Ridge to reef. Galing sa bundok, galing sa bukid, tatawid ng dagat, and you have another island. So that's how we are situated in northern Mindanao. Kaya it is difficult for us to really get connected. However, because we have the internet, and for as long as our bandwidth is good, so we cannot say no to what we are doing with online learning. Okay. Now let's go back to the syllabus, rather to the module, or rather the presentation I presented this morning. We have here the webinars. For the first day, of course, we have the 2 webinars. But for the second day, we have, or rather, on the second day, or second training day, which will be on Monday, that will be on July 13, in the afternoon, we will have the workshop. So what we had today, the webinars, this becomes resources, and we will have it uploaded in the learning management system that forms part of our resource, and the activities that we will incorporate as well. Then for the workshop, it is here stated asynchronous, which means you will have to log on to the LMS and you will look at what or how to redesign the OBE syllabus. There are instructions, there could be recordings, and you will need to as well access those materials, again, from the LMS. And then we have here another webinar on the next training day, on day 4. And then we have here another workshop, okay? Where there is actually information about whether it is asynchronous or synchronous. Take note, but if it is synchronous, there will be as well our Zoom meeting, the Zoom meetup. So for our synchronous modality, our Zoom like this that we are having now, and for the webinars in the morning, we have, of course, our collaboration with our regional office, CHED R10, and our Zoom is normally prepared by our coordinator, Mr. Mark Torres, and he will give us the links for synchronous meetings like our webinar, okay? So, and as much as other materials. So the information here will also be sent to you, and see, Ma'am Miriam will send to you the information. Of course, I think they have already sent the this schedule. And there are information what you need to prepare. So for example, in day 7, it says here, during the webinar, participants are requested to have with them their 2-slide sample PowerPoint to be used during the workshop. And the expected output, participants will share or send their PowerPoint narration or subtitles with PowerPoint with subtitles, PowerPoint with video. So there are already instructions in here. Okay, so the more specific tasks that we will be doing on day 10 and 11 is understanding the LMS, which is actually a more expounded discussion about LMS, and creating the Moodle virtual classroom. So how do we create the Moodle virtual classroom? And by then, we will teach you how to, all right? And we have another trainer for that. And for this day 10 to 11 and half of day 12, this will be, it is already sort of an extensive technology setup that we will be having. Okay, so that's how we relate our tasks to the LMS that I am talking about. So LMS is there because we have to upload the resources and download, and you will download it from that resources. And if need be, we will have the Google apps, or rather the Google application or Google Suite, where we will be using as well the Google Drive for our resources, where it will have to be linked to the LMS. So I think that's all, and I hope you will have the understanding that you will have is at this point in time, for those who has not experienced using the LMS, may be so vague for now, but eventually we will learn along the way. Thank you so much, and have a good day.
Thank you, Doc Seni. There are questions that were posted in our Facebook page as well as our Zoom chat room. If you can respond to this question. The first one is, what are the advantages of Moodle over the other learning management systems? It's because it seems that the other schools have already started using the other LMS. And why are we using Moodle and not the other LMS?
Okay. Well, we have been using the learning management system. Some of those, well, many universities are already using Moodle. Number one, because it is an open source, meaning it is free. And to install it, it is, of course, to be installed in a server. Otherwise, it could be installed in the cloud. But to install it in the cloud, it is more expensive to subscribe for the domain that will host the Moodle cloud. Now, the good thing with Moodle is it has the complete functions, or rather facilities. Like I mentioned, the 3 facilities that we have in Moodle is that we can manage learning resources, we can interact with our students, and we can as well follow through with the assessments of our students. Like for Moodle, it has as well analytics. I'm not really familiar with all other features of all other learning management systems, but what I know is that there are several learning management systems which really need to be bought by the organization or by by your university. But if you already have your learning management system, use your learning management system. But for this training, we just have to use the learning management system which we have for this training. So it is up to you whether to use Moodle, but we will teach you how to create your virtual classroom. So that's it.
Doc. And
Yes.
there's another question from Mr. Leonoro Kilang. This is in relation to the requirement where we will ask them to prepare their uh, syllabus or syllabi on Monday. Um, I, his question is this: I would like to clarify uh, only if there's a need to really redesign our syllabi. Why do we need to redesign it? That our teaching strategy is just the same as face-to-face teaching, only the time and the flexible teaching is changed.
Now, when we redesign, when we have our OBE syllabi or OBE syllabus, that we have it developed from the PSG of CHED, right? We have our syllabus and we have it for face-to-face. Now, our syllabus is there for face-to-face, but that is not the same thing as having it for flexible learning. Because in flexible learning, you will have to consider the categories of our students, like who are the students who cannot be connected, whose categories falls under category 1, category 2, and category 3. Now, the teaching learning activities that we will create or we will put in our syllabus, actually the syllabus is there, fine. But there is there where we want to emphasize the activities that we will instruct our students that if you are online, this is what you have for the resources. Now, when we do it in the traditional mode or in our residential or face-to-face mode, we normally tell our students, okay, you do this and you do that. You read this article, okay? And you say the title. But in our online environment, in this flexible modality, we tell our students the specific site or the specific link to the resource that we would like them to actually read, for example. So our syllabus is redesigned because we need to align our learning outcome to the assessment that we will have. Assessment for online delivery or for flexible mode may differ because it will just not, it will be different because there could be like assessments like just giving the exam, all right, writing or answering the exam. And where are the exams? The exams will be downloaded, or is it in the classroom like in our Moodle classroom? We have the exam uploaded in the LMS where the students can actually take it asynchronously or not asynchronously, but could be synchronously. So that is why we need to redesign the syllabus depending on the teaching and learning activities that we want to have for our students.
Okay, that's the one more question before we end our session for this afternoon. Duxeni, the question is, should we return to the pre-COVID pandemic scenario? Are we going to return to face-to-face classes? Is the flexi mode just be transitory?
Okay, now I cannot answer that because Chad has the power over how we will do about it. Now, and it depends on the institutions, but for now, our main task is we have to learn because we have to learn how to deliver our classes flexibly, because things may be different when COVID is, and of course we hope that COVID is gone, but still we are not certain about that. And going back to the pre-COVID, that will take a long while, I suppose, but let's hope that it will be shorter. And it's the same thing in our university. In IIT, we were told to really prepare for it, because in the first place, this will give us a better positioning for everyone, for all other universities. If we would like, for example, to develop our courses and to deliver courses and develop courses that could be already deployed online, this is as well actually the best thing to do, because we prepare our teachers to be able to deliver on the online mode. And hopefully we will be similar to UPOU, where, or other states or other schools like Central Luzon State University and RTU, where they have courses that are offered online. In fact, in IIT, we are hoping to really already deploy, even after COVID, that what we have for a program that will already be purely online, but that will be in the graduate course. And again, we still have to undergo the process of the CHED requirement, how we may be able to deploy, or rather institutionalize and have it registered in the CHED registry that one of our programs or more of our programs are already online. So I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, thank you so much, Doc Seni. There are still other questions, but since we don't have time, maybe Doc Seni will go over them, and then she will respond to your queries. And again, we will post this video presentation of Doc Seni and Dr. Mordeno in our Facebook page, YouTube, and in our LMS, and so that you can access them anytime. Just a reminder, when we start our lecture on Monday, you have to bring your curriculum map, your program educational objectives, a copy of your program outcomes specific to your course or subject, your course outcomes, and of course, the more important one are your syllabi or syllabus. So because the workshop will start immediately in the afternoon on Monday. And links again will be posted through our Facebook page, and then some will be allowed to get inside our Zoom meeting room. So at this point in time, we give a silent round of applause to our speakers today. And now for Dr. Zeni Malabanan for another great overview of what will happen in the next few days or next coming days. So we hope everyone will be ready, recharged, mentally and physically ready for that 12-day training starting next week. So again, in behalf of CHED Region 10 and the director, Dr. Raul Arvas, we thank Dr. Sani Malabanan for the effort and the time and the expertise shared to us. So thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.